So moving on to the approval of the minutes, I had one change in the recorder's report.
Can we do a motion? Sorry. Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, can we do a motion?
So moved.
Move to adopt.
Do we have a second on approval of the minutes?
Allen,
That Ms. Allen, seconds?
yes.
Discussion? So I have a proposed change in the recorder's office. Sandy Wegman was talking about starting September 1, that the transfer declaration report from real estate closings is going to go electronic and it's recorded as a deed. So I'm just going to change the word deed to transfer declaration. Is the recorder of deeds on the line by any chance? No.
If it's helpful, Mr. Chairman, I can confirm that was what was said.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kayas?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some notes on some of the, maybe some minor correction might be more, just corrections in the votes that, so the vote, number 2 for minutes, the first minute, Sterrett and Allen were omitted from the vote in the first box. In the second box, Allen, Kayas, Sterrett were omitted from the vote, I believe. They should be all ayes. I'm sure it's just a copy and paste thing. And then in the final, number 13, for just the adjournment vote, there was no second. It was omitted, which was Deborah Allen. And with those minor corrections, I don't hate to see somebody not get their vote when they voted.
Correct.
Those are easy. If you're okay with me just changing those, I can just change them.
Sure.
And then approve them as amended.
It's okay with me.
Okay with, is that Ms. Sterrett?
It is. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mr. Kayas. I agree with that. But also, just for the record, I did not ever receive the minutes. I've checked every day. I've checked through everything, and I did not ever receive the minutes. So I'm going to have to abstain for this because I wasn't able to review them.
Okay, thank you. We will, I'm sure, check our email list on that. Do they go out to the entire board or to the?
Public service.
Okay.
I'm just gonna look right now and see if she's on there. If she's not, I apologize and I will update.
Usually just the committee
Okay.
seems to get the minutes, and then we all can look at them afterward.
Correct.
So, Mr. Kayas, would you amend your motion to approve the minutes to reflect the amendments that were discussed by the committee? Sure. Move it as amended, and our seconder is Deborah Allen. Do you?
And I agree, that's fine.
Okay. So, yes.
We have a comment that it's difficult to hear online, so could everybody please make sure they use the microphone.
Okay. Does that include yours truly, or?
It just says it's very difficult.
Okay. I'm noticing when I'm at home Zooming, if the members, the live members aren't speaking into their microphone, you can't hear them, and there's quite a few times where you can tell they're talking, you can maybe pick it up, but so hopefully, and probably Karen's not talking into her microphone actually, so we will work on that and roll call vote on the approval of the minutes as amended.
Allen?
Allen, aye, and Mr. Chairman, you're nice and clear. Thank you.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Kayas?
Kayas, yes.
Gopi? Silva?
Silva, yes.
Sterrett?
Sterrett, yes.
Okay. Did you want to abstain, Ms. Sterrett?
Sorry, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. We don't have a finance report today. It has a recorder of deeds representative come online? No? Okay. We'll just, we have the report if anybody has questions. Just lost my television there. Is this- Oh, there you go. Okay, and the treasurer is here.
Good morning. You have before you our September report. If you notice, looking at the activity page, you can see that our e-check and online payments for ACH were up 150% this year. Last year, we collected approximately $85 million. This year, we collected $145 million via our online collection service. Our lockbox processing, which is essentially mail, stayed relatively the same. Same thing with our internet credit card payment. One thing you'll notice that's down significantly is our in-office credit card payments within the treasurer's office, which makes a lot of sense considering the restrictions and social distancing protocols we had to follow this year with property tax collections. One thing I want to make you aware of in regard to collections is we are currently down about 33 basis points in our collections. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you collect $1.3 billion in property taxes, that adds up to a significant amount of money. We're down about $4.4 million in our collections for the year. Also, we have still outstanding for collection before tax sale is $27 million in unpaid property taxes for Kane County. In light of this issue and in consideration of other issues concerning the conduct of the tax sale in a socially distanced, medically safe environment, and working with the state's attorney's office, the health department, the Supervisor of Assessments office, and IT, we are making a decision and move the tax sale back approximately 30 days. Tentatively, once we have final clearance, we're looking at a November 30th sale for our tax sale, which is what we're looking for. But there are still a few legalities we want to go through to make sure we're doing everything properly for that sale and making the proper notices and announcements that we're required to do with the tax sale.
So a question on that. What's your basis for delaying the sale? Are you,
Several factors. One, there's legality we have to clear. There's been new legislation put through by the governor concerning when and where and how we will have that sale. We want to make sure we're fully compliant with that requirement. Probably the biggest impediment is the additional time and the expertise we need in order to properly set up the sale, get clearance from the health department, make sure we're properly social distanced, make sure we have the adequate safety PPE we have for buyers, make sure the buyers are given adequate notice. And also another consideration, like I said, is to provide a little extra time for taxpayers to make that payment before the tax sale.
so you're getting legislative clearance?
Well, the legislation's already there. What I'm looking for is legal clearance from the state's attorney's office. There are still legal questions we have to answer in regards to that. And I believe my office is the only office that would be impacted. I believe I've had a discussion with Mr. Armstrong. There are things we have to consider for his office and the impact on distribution of taxing districts and other things we have to look at before we give the final green light on that. But that's what we're looking at right now.
Is the sale conducted in this room? Or?
Correct. A problem we have that's unique to Kane County and the Collier counties is we will have over 50 people participate in our sale. That does not include treasurer or clerk staff, security staff, or anyone else. So what that means is we will have to have a simultaneous sale in this room and the downstairs room, and we'll have to call both simultaneously. And there are very strict parameters on how you conduct a tax sale. So we have to not only comply with COVID, we also have to comply with state statute in regards to protecting the interests of tax buyers and taxpayers in the process of our sale.
Have you thought of other locations, or is it?
We looked at other locations logistically, and I've had a conversation with the Barb Jeffers, the head of the health department, and she's actually conferred with health officials higher up. It has to be in physically separate rooms, and the problem with, we initially looked at the Q Center. We were told that is not now an option. We've also looked at having it at the Kane County Fairgrounds with special dividers put up in place to separate the bidders, and we were told that that was not acceptable according to health regulation. It has to be physically separate rooms.
And what about restricting, I mean, don't they also bid online, or am I?
There's not online bidding at our sale. And we've looked at a number of different options to do this. We can't restrict the number of buyers. That would potentially lead to lawsuits that the county would have to look at. And we can't, not only from tax buyers, but from people subject to the sale. If you have a property that goes above zero because we had fewer bidders, each one of those would be a potential liability for the county. So these are some of the questions we've had to ask with our state's attorney's office. One, like I said, first and foremost, we have to be physically safe for all participants, county staff, and tax buyers. Beyond that, we have to be in compliance with the law. And if you look at our track record of how we conduct our offices, we are very liability and risk averse. We try to take every precaution to make sure we're compliant with the rules and regulations in how we conduct our office.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Caius?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just because I'm still relatively new at the board, this is going to, the tax sale is the delinquent taxes that are going to be sold?
Correct. Every year what happens is we send out bills the first week of May. They're usually due the first week of June and the first week of September. We conduct our tax sale at the end of October. And there's clear precedent for the treasurer to be able to move the tax sale for a variety of reasons. I think this year global pandemic qualifies. So this is, like I said, if we can conduct our sale and meet all our requirements and safety considerations on time, we would do that. But there are a number of considerations we have to do. We have to do it properly. It's going to take a little additional time. We also have to be cognizant of the fact that if we have a health issue and our office gets shut down for a couple of weeks, which has already happened this year, that's a consideration and a time constraint we have to consider also. It takes a lot of time, effort, and expense to conduct a tax sale. So we have to have some flexibility. If we have an issue with a delay because of a COVID issue, we don't want to have to reschedule the tax sale because of the cost associated with that. Better to allow the flexibility in the time schedule to where if I had to remove staff members from that process, we could find suitable replacements to conduct the sale on our behalf.
How is the volume of the sale volume? Is that up significantly this year because of COVID? You think?
Correct. Like I said, we are actually $4.4 million behind what we would have normally collected at this time in the process.
Those would end up in that.
Correct. And the benefit of having a little additional time is it lowers the cost for the county because we have to advertise and publish these people. Also, I think the humane thing to do here, especially considering the situation, is because of these other health concerns and legal concerns, one of the benefits or the side benefits of this decision is going to be to assist taxpayers with that delay and give them extra time to make that payment.
Give them extra time. I think that's
correct.
That's important as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the Supervisor of Assessments.
Good morning, members of the committee. My report begins on page number 28 of your packet. Two things I want to point out, and they're both along the lines of something that the treasurer has already begun to address, and that is how we have structured this year to make sure that everything moves along in a proper pace so the tax cycle and tax payments will not be interrupted not only this year but next year. Right now, we're already working on the tax bills that will be done in 2021 because the tax cycle does tend to overlap. And if you look at the chart on the bottom of page 28, you can see how long it took from the beginning of the year, that's the date of valuation for the taxable year, until the final filing date for each town, for the last township. The filing dates will vary by township. This is when all of them are finally in. So you can see historically, we typically in a non-quadrennial year finish in September. You can see prior to 2011, that was much, much later. And that's simply because there was a statutory change in 2011. Before 2011, we were not even permitted to start until September 10th. And that makes life a lot easier to not have that, because it means people are no longer coming to the county building in the middle of winter for hearings and having weather-related interruptions as we would have from time to time. You can see last year we were much later. We took 294 days to reach that point. The difference between this year and last year is last year was a general assessment year where all properties had to be viewed and valued. In the year other than a general assessment year, revisions and corrections are the order of the day. So not all properties are looked at individually in a non-general assessment year. So while we're the earliest we've been in any year except for 2016, what you're generally seeing is something that falls into the pattern for non-general assessment years we've seen since the legislation changed after the 2011 taxable year. On the next page, page 29, is the production report from my office. As you can see, we have kept up with all the work. We don't see any significant drops in any area. We're generally seeing increases. The biggest increase we've seen is in telephone inquiries. You can see that our month-to-month increase over the same month a year ago is a 53% increase. And of course, telephone inquiries do take time on the telephone itself to address the concerns of taxpayers. So what we're seeing really here is taxpayers who might have been accustomed to coming into the office physically switching to being helped by telephone. In the end, very few taxpayers even found themselves inconvenienced by doing it by telephone. And I think in the long term that people realize they don't have to make a physical trip to Geneva from the far reaches of the borders of the county to get assistance. We can also see increases in the website, kaneCountyAssessments.org. That's an 11% increase in visits over August 2019, and 19% increase in property lookups to our DevNet wedge site. That is the site that is shared by my office and the treasurer, so we have one site to go to, not multiple sites, again, looking for coordination and efficiency among county offices. The final filing deadline has passed for all townships. We are not completely docketed because if somebody files and it's postmarked by the final filing deadline, it will be accepted as timely filed, and that's a state law. And so we do expect to see a few more, but we're topping out at about 1,200 complaints. That's about a 32% decline from last year. On the surface of it, that seems like a large decline, but looking at the numbers long term, and I'll have a little more on that next month when we have those numbers in final form, that's really more of a return to what you would expect to see in a non-general assessment year. With last year being all parcels looked at and reviewed, you would expect to see an increase in assessment complaints, and historically that is what we've seen in a general assessment year, and this is more of a return to normal. In talking to some of my colleagues in other counties, they're seeing largely the same things, so this does not appear to be any type of unusual trend in the assessment complaint process. Right now, we're looking in scheduling those out, and we're looking at getting everything scheduled in either a written evidence hearing or a telephone hearing no later than the end of the calendar year, and we're looking at certifying to the county clerk's office in early January, if not by the end of December. And right now we have a lot of time built in to make sure that if there's any hiccups, either COVID related or for other reasons, the tax cycle will again be on time and under budget. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions any of the members have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Armstrong? Sounds like everything's running smoothly, as usual, I guess. Regional Office of Education. I think Ms. Del Santo is with us.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
We are in the process of starting to plan for our photography show, our annual photography show, and we are already getting submissions from our school districts. We're looking at options of doing it in shifts possibly to be sure that we can socially distance and do it safely. We're also looking at a remote option for that too. So as we get more information, I'll be sure to get the date out to you. School continues to be a challenge for all of our districts, and we are working very closely with the health department. Barbara and I talk frequently, and I really value all the input she's given us. So that's really, we've been just involved in getting school going and started in working with remote learning, doing professional learning for teachers to help them do better in those areas. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any comments on how the school year is going with the COVID in person, not in person, those types of?
Well, we learn something new every day. We all know the guidance is changing rapidly. So we're doing our best that we can. But we are having to quarantine staff. We are having to quarantine students. And we're trying to maintain at least the special ed kids in a face-to-face environment. And that we still do have 5 districts doing hybrid models, and they seem to be successful right now. So we just kind of have to wait and see.
Mr. Kenyon, did you have a question?
Question is special needs parents and under the term autism. U46 is reluctant to help these parents. You know, an autistic child by themselves at a computer doesn't look for a very good result. And a friend of mine wants an aid, and they refuse to do it or talk about it.
Well, if you would give me a call, and if you can give me specific details, I can look into that case more. We do have cases where kids with sensory issues are unable to tolerate masks. And so we're trying to find solutions with the doctors on how we can still keep staff and the students safe. So if you have a specific instance, if you give me a call and give me that information, I'm happy to check into that.
Well, I think the problem is the child has to be at home alone because both parents work.
Yeah, and CU46 is just about totally remote because they're so large. They tried to do a hybrid model, and it just staff-wise, they don't have the number of staff to be able to do a remote model and a hybrid model.
Aren't there in person for special needs students, or is that not the case?
There are some. As much as possible, they're trying to do that. But again, it depends on, there's so many circumstances. There's staffing, there's facility as to if they can accommodate that and do it in a safe way. If you have a teacher that's in a high risk group, that's the special needs teacher, you can't just swap out a teacher. You have to have special training to deal with the special need kids. So the layers, it's like an onion. You start to peel back the layers, and you think you've solved one issue, and then there's 5 other issues you have to figure out.
I have an anecdote. I was talking to a new school bus driver for U46. This is sort of a random, out of nowhere kind of a comment, but so I asked her how's it going, and surprised that she was actually working, but she picks up 4 children, 4 like high school students from various schools around the area, and then she drives those 4 students to Burlington, maybe Burlington High School, and they're studying veterinary technology. So they're vet techs, and then she waits there an hour. When their class is done, then she drives them back to their school. So I was just surprised to hear that. I talked to another bus driver who said he's being paid as though he was working, but he's doesn't have any routes because there are very few routes out there. So some things can, I guess veterinary technology has to go on. So thank you. Unless anybody else has any other comments, questions, we'll move on to the.
Actually, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, this is Deborah Allen. Dr. Del Santo, I just wanted to say blessings on your head for trying to figure out how to manage these bubbles of students and teachers and staff that does food and staff that does maintenance. It's just amazing to try and balance all of that and keep everyone healthy. I just wanted to say, if there is a silver lining here, it may be that there will be models that will work and models that will not. It's we're being forced into experiments, and we can just hope that as many as possible are successful, but at least maybe some of them will be successful so that we'll be able to move forward. So good luck with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And you're right, Mrs. Allen. We have some students that are flourishing under remote learning. They're doing really, really well. So that's helping us to know that there are some kids that may not have to sit at a desk 5 hours a day. So we're learning a lot of lessons, and hopefully we can take the positive out of this experience and use it in the future.
Good comments, Deborah. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. We will, unless there's anything else, we'll move on to our county clerk, who is in full regalia.
Show and tell.
Exactly. So for those of you that aren't here, I'm actually going to pull the mask down. For those of you that aren't here, I have a plexiglass screen in front of me. I'm wearing gloves, a face shield, a 95 mask, and a gown. These will be the protections that are offered to our election judges, and actually in other sense to the voters as well. Take this off so I can see. So as we've said, our frontline workers, our judges, their health and safety are critical just as the voters' health and safety, and we're doing everything we can to protect them. So these are some of the things we'll have for protections. So judges will have, obviously they'll be wearing masks. We have these available for them if they don't already have their own. If they want to wear the gown for extra protection, they can. Everyone will be wearing gloves, and the face shields are an option as well. But the voters will be on one side of the plexiglass, and the judges will be on another. So we'll have, for those of you that voted in person in the primary, we'll have the sanitation stands when the voters come into the polling location, so they can sanitize upon entering. There'll be plenty of sanitizer all around. They can sanitize going out. We have, in addition to our judges who will be sanitizing the equipment, the tables, the frequently touched surfaces after every use, we have sanitation teams that are assigned to a few polling locations that will be coming around and spraying. So if you're there and you're voting and you happen to see someone come by with a sprayer and they're spraying that kind of mist in the air to sanitize, just understand that we're doing everything we can to protect the voters and our election workers. So for those voters who want to vote in person, it'll be as safe and clean as we can do. So we have that. Voting begins next Thursday. So for those people that have requested vote by mail ballots, the first round of ballots will be mailed out starting next Thursday when it's allowed by statute. And then after that, as they come in, they'll go out on a rolling basis. The deadline to request the vote by mail ballots is the 29th of October, but don't wait till the 29th of October. You've heard all the warnings about mail. It's not that the mail system can't handle it. Even in a normal world, that's 5 days. To have a ballot go out, to get to you, to turn it around, to mail it, and get it postmarked in 5 days, don't risk it. So if people want to vote by mail, make your application as soon as possible. If you know who you're voting for, fill out your ballot. There's already postage on there. Send it back in the mail, bring it to a Dropbox, bring it to our office, but get it out. For those people who want to vote in person. If you want to vote on Election Day, great. Our polls will be open. We'll be ready for you. Or it's technically grace period voting, but voters will be allowed to begin voting on the 24th, next Thursday. Clerk's office in Geneva and then in Aurora. So those two sites will begin next Thursday. I have some of the posters for you guys if you want to distribute them in your community, in your districts. All the locations are on the website. We have 25 different polling locations, early voting locations this time. We have the 7 permanent ones that have nights and weekend hours. Those are open 8:30 to 7 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on weekends. And then the other sites have different hours. And then the 2 vote mobiles will be out as well. So that's voting. And then we're running everything else we're doing in the office now too. So,
Mr. Kennan?
You mentioned the word Dropbox.
yes,
Do you have is there a box that's on campus here that?
there will be 3. There'll
3?
be one here in our office. There'll be one in the Aurora office, and there'll be one in Elgin.
So voters can just drop it there and not worry about the mail.
Correct. Or they can bring it to the clerk's office as well.
Are those, I read about, from your website, the drop boxes, so say in the city of Elgin, I think it's going to be in City Hall, proposed. So when they close at 5, that drop box will be unavailable?
When the final decisions are made, they'll be announced, but right now, tentatively, that would be the plan.
And same with the main clerk's office when you close? Okay. And I think that's, I'm okay with that. I think that's very secure. And then, but you may be, are you open till 7 for early voting, beginning at the 24th at the clerk's office, or is that a?
Beginning October 19th is when early voting expands.
Okay.
Now, the clerk's office is open until 8 o'clock on Wednesdays,
Okay.
so that would be additional time to drop off the ballots.
Including that you called it grace period voting, so technically voting at the clerk's office.
You can vote early beginning on Thursday.
Yeah.
It's a statutory issue.
Right,
but
okay. I mean, it's different. And so that might be available till 8 on Wednesdays.
no, it'll be 8:30 to 4:30 until October 19th.
Oh, okay. Mr. Caius, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, was Mr. Kenyon's point about the drop boxes was my first. The second was, just to reiterate, if you do get the early voting mailed to you, the mail-in absentee ballot, you can take that into any voting location and vote on the machines
Yes,
by surrendering that early, or the ballot.
yes. Or sign an affidavit saying that you're intending to vote in person.
Right.
But ideally, bring the ballot.
And that is not that's a real legitimate vote. It's not like it's a
It's not a provisional.
that's it, a provisional ballot. It's a
You
real,
surrender your ballot, it's not a provisional.
It's a real vote. So, thank you.
If you have the affidavit, do they have to wait to check?
No, it's a real vote.
It's a real vote. So on these drop boxes, there'd be cameras, presumably you have security in these locations. I guess does anybody on by Zoom have any questions? Jump in if you do. So I want to ask you again about this flow chart that the chairman has requested or is requested. So I was thinking about this and kind of putting yourself in the shoes of a person who, I was saying like a high school dropout or something like that. So somebody who's not highly educated, highly adept at computers, et cetera. You hear everything on the news. You hear about ballots and absentee and early and grace period, all these things. So it's really very complicated. And I think that's what we'd be looking for, reducing it to a one page or a one poster size. Here's your options, and here's how it works. So it's basically absentee, I think, right? Or it
No such thing as absentee ballot. It's voting by mail. But
vote by mail is what we call it. Okay. Which we've had.
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed there, right? Just the popularity and so forth. Or the COVID. So that's one option, and you have this deadline date and this deadline date. The envelope is
Postage paid.
pre-postage paid, but you can mail it in your own envelope if you lose your envelope, or no? Does it have to have the signature on?
It has to have a signature on there. So if you didn't get that ballot, you're going to have to either get another ballot or you're going to have to vote in person.
Okay. And then
You can't just make an envelope because the signature is on the outside and the barcode and all the other things that help process that.
Right. Yeah, so that's a specialized envelope that has to be, ideally, the person would safeguard that until and then they have the option of mailing it, handing it to their mailman, putting it in a post box, taking it to a post office, bringing it to one of those 3 Dropbox locations. So it's complicated.
All of the information's on the website.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clear if you live through, actually, if you're talking about people that we've boiled it down on social media to get a little image of there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote in person on election day, you can vote in person early, or you can vote by mail. And then under each of the options, there's a link to say, here's where you go if you want to request a ballot. Here's where you go to see where this poster is, so you can see all the early voting options. Here's the link to see where your polling places are. Under the vote by mail, here are the deadlines. For early voting, here are the dates. For election day, the polls are open from 6 to 7. I mean, everything is right there. It's one image with links. So
on the internet. So if you don't have internet access or you don't have a computer, which, people still exist, right? That would be, that's what I think that the request is some sort of a simplified, well, I don't know how simple it could be, but.
if they don't have internet, how are they going to get this one-page piece of paper? Is the county mailing it to
Well, I'm not.
100,000 people?
I don't know that. It would
If
be
you
available.
remember
They could call and you could mail it to them, or they could call their
If you remember,
county board member.
the clerk's office mailed a letter to 211,000 voters.
You could drive it out to each voter.
Unfortunately, we have to run an election right now, but we did mail to 211,000 voters, explain to them what all the options were, saying that they could request a ballot, including about an application in there, and then saying they could still vote in person on election day. So, I mean, I understand that people may have questions, but
Well, even if it was just available to decision makers or people of that nature, that would be useful, I think. Any other questions, or have we beat that horse? Okay. That I think I guess under the county clerk's, looking at the death numbers, Kane County deaths, all causes located in Kane County, they're down again and closer to, here we go. They're above almost all previous years, but it's normalizing in terms of when I average that, averaging the last 3 years, only slightly ahead. So cases may be continuing, but, obviously the deaths in Kane County in general are reducing, and I think that's a good thing. Moving on to other business, I don't have anything under public service. I guess if any committee members or anybody online that has any ideas how to improve Kane County's service to the public, we would welcome those ideas. Executive session, no need. Did anybody else have anything online that wanted to be said? Hearing none.
Here, I think it's a good look for you, Brian.
It-
Good look for you, Brian. I wish you guys could be here. They're online. He's
Yeah,
ready to go.
I took some pictures, so maybe you'll have to check social media. Now, the coroner says that the face shield obviates the need for the face mask. I don't know if the clerk has a position on that, but I think the plexiglass and the shield and the mask should. Yeah. So a motion to place reports on file. Mr. Caius moves. Do I have a second?
Starrett.
Susan Starrett seconds. All in, roll call vote, I guess.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Hernandez, Caius,
Caius, yes.
Yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Starrett,
Starrett, yes.
Scheffler, yes. Public comment? Seeing none, hearing none. Going once, going twice. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Ms.
Starrett.
Starrett moves. Mr. Caius seconds. Roll call vote.
Voice vote. Oh, it's your discretion, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. All in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, the picture of Mr. Pollock is on our screen.
Oh, yeah.
It's perfectly wonderful.
Yes.
It's terrific.
It's, I understand it's going to be mandatory for all board members in going forward, but
Yeah, you bring extra sets of those next time for us.
I don't know. I'm not sure the chairman will.
You're going to have to talk with my agent about the rights to use that picture. The modeling company may not agree, so.
All right.
Okay, so I think that we accomplished that vote, do we not? So we are adjourned. Thank you.